Welcome to Speak for Yourself, presented by Popeye's Chicken. All right, we got a great show planned for you today. Ken Rosenthal is going to join us, and we're going to talk some Major League Baseball to start the show. But also stick around. We're going to get in. We got some major football interviews. Derrick Brooks, NFL Hall of Famer, Tampa Bay Buccaneer great. He's going to pull up. Also, Richard Seymour, Patriots Hall of Famer, future NFL Hall of Famer, all decade in the 2000s. We'll hear from him about the New England Patriots and his own career. All right, but first, as advertised, we will start by bringing in Ken Rosenthal, who's in New Jersey. Ken Rosenthal, obviously a Fox Sports Major League Baseball expert. And there's news in the Major League Baseball world. The owners have made a proposal to the Players Union on a shortened season, 82 games. And there's a little bit of a dispute, there seems to be, about what type of revenue split we're looking at between the players and the owners. Ken, what's the latest from Major League Baseball on their proposal to the players?
Actually, Jason, they're presenting that proposal right now for the first time. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of reports about what is in that proposal. You can see it right there. And there's been a lot written and a lot said about what's in that proposal. But this is the first time they've actually spoken. It's a digital conversation. It's going on through Zoom or whatever. And in addition to the financial elements, the bottom thing there, protocol for keeping players safe, that is really the number one concern for players right now. How is this going to work? How logistically are we going to be kept safe? And not just us, but the coaches, the managers, the trainers, everyone else. And in addition to all that, what happens if a player gets sick? What happens to that team? How does this all work? So that is the first priority, the health question, and settling that. And after that, you can deal with some of the financial questions and some of the other things, though in some respects, the financial question is tied to health, and that the players believe, rightly so, that they're the ones taking the risk and they do not want to make any further financial concessions.
You brought us to the money point and the money question. What the players suspicious of the owners' suggestion of a 50-50 revenue split. Baseball obviously has no salary cap. They have no interest in this. What do you think is the real motivation behind the owners asking for a 50-50 revenue split?
Jason, I wish I knew the answer to that because, as you mentioned, baseball is the only major professional sport without a salary cap. The Players Union has been historically and strongly opposed to any suggestion of a salary cap. And when you have a straight percentage of revenue that is accorded to the players, that in the union's mind is something that amounts to a salary cap. Now, let's go back a little bit. There was a March agreement in which the players agreed to prorated salaries for the 2020 season if it's played on a shortened schedule. So 81 game season, for instance, just let's make the math easy. Mookie Betts is making $20 million. He makes half that, $10 million. That's the prorated. Now, what the owners are saying is we don't want to do that because we will lose money with no fans in the park if we pay the players their full prorated salary. That's why they suggested this revenue split of 50-50. But they had to know, in my opinion, that this would trigger the players, for lack of a better phrase. And I wonder if this is indeed a formula they think can work on a one-time basis, and that's the only suggestion here. It's a one-time basis. Or is this simply a negotiating position? You start off here, and then you get to another level that is more acceptable to the players.
You said something in your original answer that I hadn't considered because I was originally on the owner side. But I think the best argument the players have on their side is like, okay, you're going to lose revenue, but we're taking the health risk. That makes up the difference in why we want a prorated portion of our contract.
Jason, actually, you wouldn't want to see either side using the pandemic to its negotiating advantage. It's kind of, for lack of a better word, unseemly. But that is the reality of this situation. And that is kind of where they are with it. Certainly the health thing is no small issue. And if you're a player it might not even be your health you're worried about. For instance, Sean Doolittle, Nationals reliever, his wife, Aaron Dolan, has a history of respiratory problems. He's worried about her, understandably so. You might have a parent who's living with you, even a child with asthma. There are all kinds of things that a player could be wondering about with regard to health that might not even involve him. So there is a lot to sift through there on the health angle, and that's something that they're going to have to address in the coming days.
Are you confident that we're going to have a 2020 Major League Baseball season?
Jason, I'm confident that they're going to get an agreement. Even with all the back and forth of fireworks the last few days, both sides recognize they have to play. Otherwise, they're in a bigger hole for 2021. You can't go dark for 18 months as a sport. It doesn't work financially. It doesn't work in terms of the public. And it's something that really a lot of fans desire. Everybody wants to get the sport back. And the players want their money. The owners want their money and all of that. There's too much incentive for it not to happen, not for that agreement to take place. My concern going forward is simply the logistics and playing out the season and seeing how it goes. I've written this and people have talked about it. Fans, owners, players, everyone involved with the sport, they're going to have to accept that this is not going to be a typical season. It's going to be a season that requires a lot of flexibility and thought on schedule and on how things just might progress. You might need to shut down or cancel a couple of games. You might need to do a number of things. I don't think they'll shut down the sport. That's what they want to avoid. But you're going to have to be of the mindset that this is different. You're going to have to tolerate that. And this goes for all the parties involved. And even then, there might be things that go wrong that really compromise the sport.
Ken, thank you for the time. Continue to be safe and healthy. Wish you luck. Hopefully we'll have a baseball season. Thank you so much. All right, that was Ken Rosenthal, Fox Sports Major League Baseball expert and reporter. All right, Marcellus, get us rolling here. If there is no Major League Baseball season, would you blame Major League Baseball players for that?
No, I wouldn't. I'm understanding this argument from both sides, and respectfully, no one obviously caused this pandemic, but also no one in this situation should try and take advantage of the other because of this pandemic. And if you listen to the words of the Major League Baseball Players Association Executive Director Tony Clark, this is a situation where I think a lot of the players are looking at it as ownership trying to use a global pandemic as a way to try and get something done that they've never been able to do in the past, which is basically get to a salary cap. And think how they're going to get there because of this pandemic. You talk about a baseball player who before this had his guaranteed salary, and then we've moved forward to where you're going to get a prorated portion of that guaranteed salary. But now what comes from it is the next level of 50-50 split of potential revenue. Now that's a leap. And that's a leap that if I were a player, I wouldn't sign on to. Why wouldn't I? Well, one, Major League Baseball is the only major sport that doesn't disclose what their TV deal money and revenue is. So how are we going to talk about a situation and an economy that is really the driving force, because we all know there's a health risk involved. The players are going to actually be in contact with each other. The owners could be distant, far away, and still abiding by social distancing guidelines. But the players, they can't. They have to go out there and take on that inherent risk. They need to be supported, and they need to be compensated for that. And then you talk about the economics, and 40% or north of that is based on in-gate, at-gate, and home stadium money and revenue. Where's that going to come from if you're talking about no fans being in attendance? So you're not telling us your TV money, and there won't be any money in terms of coming through the gate. And we've already said no to salary cap restrictions, which now seem like they're on the table. I'm with Tony Clark. I'm with the players on this one, not going for the banana in the tailpipe.
I woke up this morning, read this story, and was like, man, this is a bad look for the players. I'm on ownership side. I listened to you and Ken Rosenthal talk, And I'm like, no, I'm on the player side. They're taking the health risk. And I think that point of when you're taking that health risk and the potential of bringing it home to your wife, kids, extended family, whatever, that to me is like, no. You have to incentivize me. And it can't be this 50-50 revenue split again. And there's a reason why the Major League Baseball's player union has been so strong. They have a very cynical attitude about Major League Baseball ownership and the fudging of books and how much money is actually being made. You're throwing all your trust over to ownership for them to, one, be transparent with the money that's being made. And then you're also asking me to take this health risk for not just me and my family. And look, I'm someone that has clearly, to some degree, jumped on the side of, hey, look, there's inherent risk in life, and we're going to have to move more aggressively than what we are during this pandemic. But I'm not someone making $10, $20 million a year playing baseball for a limited amount of time, and I don't blame these guys for valuing themselves and playing the long game here. Hey, we may have to miss a year in order to protect these rights that we've had for a long time. So I go back. I would not blame the players. Their position is reasonable. I do think some of the public may fall for the okie doke. Hey, man, it's rough out here, 50-50. You can still make several $1 million a year playing. Just go out and play the sport. The country needs this. That sounds good, but the reality, if I'm sitting in the player's shoes, I think I make the same decision that they make. All right, stick around. Don't go anywhere. We're going to go out and join an NFL Hall of Famer, a Tampa Bay Buccaneer great, a Super Bowl champion, Derrick Brooks from his crib. Speak for yourself from the crib, presented by Popeye's Chicken. I'm sorry. All right, more after this.
That's my dog.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. All right, happy Tuesday to you. Let's roll out to Tampa, Florida, and join, and I hope Warren Sapp's not watching because I got to say this. Let's join the greatest Buccaneer, Derrick Brooks. He played more Pro Bowls than Warren Sapp while in the Buccaneers uniform. Warren, I'm sorry for saying that. Next time you're on, I'll call you the greatest Buccaneer. All right, Derrick, let's start here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, huge offseason news, signing Tom Brady, now Rob Gronkowski. You got Mike Evans, you got the Godwin wide receiver, you got Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich. The greatest show on earth has moved to Tampa, but when I think of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think of Derrick Brooks, Warren Sapp, Simeon Rice, John Lynch. I think of great defense, and I'm wondering as a defensive player, knowing that defense wins championships, any chance this Tampa Bay Buccaneer offense is overhyped?
You know, Jason, I won't use the word overhyped just yet, just because you have to respect, the fact of what Tom and Gronkowski did together for all those years in New England. But what I will say is the Bucs have done a great job of building this football team in all phases, which I like to say the 4 phases of building. They've checked the box and you can give them an A. One, they addressed their current team by keeping the defense together with the veterans, signing JPP back, Dominic Sue, keeping those guys together, Shaq Barrett, getting him back. So they've done a great job of keeping a nucleus of that defense together to help grow with that young secondary. The linebackers going to be better. Avonte David, Devin White. Another year, he's not a rookie. And you saw last year when he got healthy how much of an impact player he can be. So they're addressed in keeping that team. Then the next bill is free agency. Man, they swung for the fences and they hit a home run, in getting Tom Brady in terms of what this football team needs, right now. And they're putting all the chips to the middle of the table and making a run for it. And then Tom swung for the fences and convinced them to go get his number one target in terms of Rob Gronkowski. And I think Bruce Arians is smart enough to manage how Gronk will be used within this offense because he's never had this type of player in all of his previous offense. And then you got to give them credit with the draft. They checked the box right there, too, addressing the offensive line needs with their first pick and getting depth and with the running back position and the other young players in the draft. So right now, they've checked the boxes in all three areas. And the fourth area be whenever they're able to get back together and see how all these things fit together physically. So I got to give them credit. I won't use the word overhype, but I will definitely say you have to respect all the moves that they've made thus far in improving this football team for 2020.
Hate to disagree with you, but I think there's a great chance this team is hype. Let's look at this one category, and it's focused on Tom Brady and the way that he likes to play the game. Look at his yards per attempt. Look how Tom Brady wants to get the ball out quickly and to the right open receiver. Now, if you look at the receiving core of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Jameis Winston would throw that deep ball and would give you a 50-50 ball opportunity. That's not Tom Brady. If you look at his yards per attempt last year, it was his lowest of his career since 2002. He likes to dink it, likes to dunk, short, intermediate, not the deep balls, which is a strength of this team. So if Tom Brady, because of this offseason being disrupted, is not comfortable with his deep threats and decides to play his style of ball and not the Tampa style of ball that was number one in the passing attack last year, it could get off to a rough start. Gronkowski may not be the same coming off of a red shirt campaign. That's the only category, the only lens I'm looking at this team is seeing if he is going to be as daring with the football as Jameis Winston was.
Marcellus, I will say this. Jameis redefined the 50-50 ball, and they actually called it a 25-75 ball down in Tampa when Jameis was there. But here's where I agree with you. And Derrick, I want you to respond to this. This is where I agree with Marcellus. He said it. He touched on it briefly. I think this compromised offseason is going to hurt not just Tom Brady, but offenses around the league. Defenses always start out ahead of offenses. Just go out and make plays, run the football, get after the quarterback. We're going to play some man-to-man, blah, blah, blah. I just think, particularly for Brady, but for all NFL offenses, the defenses are going to be out ahead of them, and it's going to be even more pronounced for Tampa Bay, and that's where I think maybe this offense won't hit its stride.
Well, that's where I disagree with both you guys, and I'm going to speak for myself and the Bucs. I think by them keeping 90% of their defense, which if you look towards the last 8 games of the season, they finished in the top 5 in every category. So I don't think the Bucs will have a problem with the defense carrying the team until the offense catches up. Secondly, I think it's time for an evolution in terms of the assets that the Bucs have at the receiver position. Not every ball that they were thrown were balls that were down the field. A lot of their explosive plays, these guys, whether it was Godwin or Evans, they broke tackles and got a lot of yards after the catch. The problem, obviously, that everybody, Jason, you alluded to, was Tom would do a better job. And again, I believe this so because of his experience of protecting the football and giving his offense extended possessions that they did not have last year and turning those into points. And again, Marcellus, I do think these coaches, particularly Coach Arians, is smart enough to understand that, yes, Gronkowski may not be the Gronkowski of old, and you have to manage that load in terms of putting him in successful positions to succeed, whatever that may be. But yes, Whitlock, I think everything that you said, all offenses will definitely be behind the defenses because of the missed time at OTAs.
Derrick, let's address the elephant in the room, not me, Tom Brady's age. He's going to be 43 this year. And we've had Mike Evans say that Tom Brady is a franchise changer. Can you be a franchise changer at age 43? Do you agree with Mike Evans that Tom Brady is a franchise changer at 43?
My answer to that is no, I can't agree with him because it's going to take everybody. And going through changing a franchise, we had to do that together. It just wasn't Derrick Brooks. It just wasn't Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber, John Lynch, Simeon Rice. It was all of us collectively. We even went through a changing of head coaches at that time to be a part of a franchise changer. So I would disagree with him in this regard. It's going to take more than just one player to do that. But yes, he could be a difference maker on offense. Obviously, in terms of his decision making, I think that can be a difference. But in terms of turning around an entire franchise, I don't think one player has the capability to do that, period.
Man, I love me some Derrick Brooks, but I got to disagree with you again, Hall of Famer. Think about this. Like, someone has to go out there and start the fire. We can name the flames, but somebody got to get it ignited, and that's Tom Brady. And it's in the culture, the thoughts, the actions, the decisions, but more so, it's the ignition of that imagination. I've been there before. You certainly have been there before. When I went to San Diego and I looked at that defense, and before I even stepped on the field, before you lace up the cleats, you start saying, Junior Seau, Rodney Harrison, my workouts, my motivation, my preparation, my mindset was just in a different place because it's a cultural change. And when you see Tom Brady walk in that building, I got to take these players at their words. They're saying we feel different. We're thinking different. Guess what that means? You're going to move different. And I think that it is all going to come from an inspiration to that imagination. Kind of like when you're growing up, people used to say, you need to leave your neighborhood, get exposed to something. And when you get exposed to something new, you come back to the old differently and better. This is an underprivileged Tampa Bay Bucks team that finally left the neighborhood. Tom Brady taking them places, man, right up here.
Well, you just said earlier.
I think Marcel.
You change it up on me, in terms of your feelings on Tom. But, just generally speaking, it's not going to happen, overnight. And to say that he is the one to do it by himself, I think that's unfair. Let's not forget, this is the first time in 20 years that he's going to a different culture. And you just can't expect him to just pick up the bicycle and ride it the same way. It's very different. I want to see how Tom performs in this heat down here on a daily basis. No seasonal change. It's just all the little nuances. You can tell right now, like, he's not used to being bothered and his privacy being invaded like it's been since here in Tampa because they're used to seeing their superstars. Well, Tom is not used to that all the time. So, again, going through all those adjustments, I think it's going to take time. I just would not automatically stamp him as a franchise changer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you're talking day one. I just got to see it happen over time.
Well, I disagree with Mike Evans, or I disagree with you for this reason. I agree with Mike Evans. What he's talking about is DBs not running the other direction with pick six touchdowns will change this franchise. And so the franchise is going to be changed just on that alone, which is a perfect segue into our final topic, Derrick. Please defend your boy, your Florida State Seminole brother, Jameis Winston. We have the question labeled here. Think Jameis Winston can be a franchise QB again? I wouldn't have added the word again here. I would have just left it at, can Jameis Winston be a franchise QB? He had the job, but I never considered him a franchise QB in Tampa. He ain't been a franchise player since his freshman year at Florida State or whatever, the year he led him to the national championship. But what's the future like for Jameis Winston?
I will defend Jameis again to the end of this earth because I've seen him since he was 16 years old coming to camps at Florida State. And I think right now is the perfect time for Jameis to be a student. Before he could not, divulge all the time into being a student because he had to go out there and play. He had to learn on the go. He had to deal with, all the pressures of not just playing the quarterback, but being a leader. And now he's in a situation where none of those pressures are upon him. He gets an opportunity to truly learn the game from a different perspective from two of the best people in the game, meaning Sean Payton and Drew Brees. And I'm not comparing it to a Teddy Bridgewater situation, obviously, because, Teddy now has an opportunity to lead another franchise. But I think personally for Jameis having this opportunity without all these added pressures, to me, will benefit him in the long run. While I think he could earn the right to be a starting quarterback again in this league, and we'll let the franchise, characteristic, let that play itself out. But I think right now, at this point in his career, I think this is the best move for him. And in talking with him about this situation, man, he can't be more excited about this opportunity because, again, this is newfound territory for him, and he's embracing this with open arms and an open mind.
Hey, Derrick, really appreciate the time. We got to let you go. I know you got something else to do. Marcellus, you get the final word on this. Think Jameis Winston could be a franchise quarterback again?
Stop saying again, like you said before. I've never seen Jameis Winston as that franchise quarterback, man, being real. Look, it's always bad when you were the number one pick overall and now you're a backup in 5 years. It's also bad that when your peers pass you by. It's even worse when people are younger and less tenured than you and they have passed you by as franchise quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. Hey, we can even start stretching to Jimmy G, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, whatever you want to say. There are other guys who are chomping at the bit. Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. The point of this is Jameis Winston, who has thrown 12 more interceptions than any other quarterback since he's been in the league, is going to be a very difficult climb for him to get back to a level where we can think of him as a franchise quarterback. He's a risk taker. So all the success that I look and I dive into the numbers and watch the film on Jameis, every time you see tremendous success, you see tremendous risk. And as a franchise quarterback, you have to be responsible. You have to be accountable with the football. And right now in his career, we haven't seen him responsible enough with that football.
Marcellus, we didn't get to do this with Derrick Brooks, but, man, he had all them game balls behind him. That was a hell of a setup he had behind him at his home. And it reminded me, funny story before we get out of here and get to Richard Seymour, I got one game ball as a Ball State football person. I won't say player. Because I didn't get the game ball until like 2009 because I sent a bunch of fans to a game in Northern Illinois. It's the only game ball. I wasn't on the team. I was a booster. My game ball comes from a booster. I'm looking at Derrick Brooks damn near every game. He was player of the game. All right, we got to keep it rolling. We're going to talk to another great Patriots great Hall of Famer, future NFL Hall of Famer, Richard Seymour from his crib. Speak for yourself, presented by Hyundai. Oh, damn, he's sitting there with Lombardi trophies behind him.
That's my dog.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. All right, time to roll down to Atlanta and visit the crib of Richard Seymour, Patriots Hall of Famer, future NFL Hall of Famer, 3-time Super Bowl champion, member of the All-Decade team, and maybe most impressive, $643,000 in career earnings at poker, according to our research. A professional poker player dabbling in the side. For Richard. All right. Anytime you make that much money, it's professional.
But I just enjoy the game. I'll say that.
Perfect. Hey, let's start with your former teammate Tom Brady and the Patriot way, which you experienced. Were you as surprised at all, or did you assume eventually Tom Brady would play in a different uniform than the New England Patriots?
Yeah, I'd personally say it was unexpected. But we know it's the National Football League, and, you always hear the term expected, unexpected. But when you think about Tom and everything that he's brought to the table and 6 Super Bowls and, probably go down as, the greatest of all time at that position, I would say it was a little unexpected. I thought they would, figure things out. But, I think also Tom has earned the right to, test the waters and see what's out there in terms of other teams and how other organizations and cultures are ran. So, but it is what it is.
Couple of weeks ago, we had on your former teammate and Hall of Famer Ty Law, and we asked him, Ty, who you going to root for this season more, Tom Brady or the New England Patriots? We'll ask you the same question. Who you going to root for the most, Brady or the Patriots?
I'll say this, I've always been a players guy. I don't follow a whole lot of franchises or universities. I'm always with the players. But, and Tom's been a friend for, 20 plus years. So I'm always rooting for him, and everything that he does is, tremendous player and person off the field as well. But, at the same time, New England's the team that drafted me and gave me an opportunity in the National Football League. So, they'll always be near and dear to my heart as well.
Now, Seymour, is the Patriot way really just Bill Belichick's way? And I ask that because his disciples, everywhere they go, it seems like they struggle implementing that culture.
Well, I'll say this, Coach Belichick has 50 plus years of experience. So, I don't care if you've been on his staff, it's hard to try to take that and implement it anywhere else. I think, that's definitely going to be difficult to do. He's, coached some of the greats, Lawrence Taylor on down the line, but just in terms of them not succeeding, it's just one of those things where, Belichick is Belichick and he's an all-time great, probably one of the greatest to ever do it. And, it's just a difficult task even if you're on that team in the personnels and watching them, it's hard to go out and implement. I'll say it like this, everybody was saying the 300 Chryslers were just like the Rolls Royces until you pull up beside the Rolls Royce. It's totally different. So,
Man.
Damn, Charlie Weiss is a 300 Chrysler. We got it.
Hey, Seymour, you ain't right. Look, hey, you talking to a guy who used to have one of those Phantoms, the Rolls Royce, and boy, I used to think the same way. Like, that ain't the same, but go ahead. I wish I had your sticker price. With that said, man, Tom Brady, how important was he to establishing that culture?
Tom's a champion. I'll say that. He's a champion. He's a competitor. He came in with a chip on his shoulder, and as we saw, he's carried that throughout his entire career. And I think every player, if you want to succeed, you're always finding a way. You look at the Jordan doc, The Last Dance, he's always building up, just mental and mind games to go out and be the best. And whatever that takes, texting guys in the off season and throwing with guys, whatever it took, he was a professional. And I will say, he's a big part. And I look at our teams, when you talk about even with Ty Law being on the show, and those teams were kind of different. They were more defensive-led teams. Myself, Teddy Bruschi, McGinnis, Brable, Harrison. So the teams were totally different in 2001 when we beat the Rams to maybe 2004. And then it started to switch into more of an offensive team when we brought in Randy Moss and Wes Welker and, putting up a lot of points. But it was more defensive-led early on. And, I think throughout the decade, it switched over.
Now, let's have some fun with you and your career, man. Amazing, obviously, man. But if you could go back to your rookie year, 15 years in the league and tons of money, tons of Pro Bowls, you're still going to be Richard Seymour. Would you have chosen to play for a looser culture than the Patriots or have it the way it went?
I'll say this. I think I learned a lot over the many years being under Coach Belichick. I think he's, one of the brightest minds, not just in sports, but just in general. Like if you were a boxer, like you would want him in your corner because he's so he breaks down every piece of detail. So I just think as a player, I want the best advice. Like I don't need to be motivated to play, but I think I need a coach that's going to put me in the right positions, that's going to break down game plans so I know what to expect and what's coming. And he definitely did that. But, you hear it all the time. Like you leave this game with, money and memories. And, we won a lot and we got paid. And at the end of the day, I think the team that we had being such a veteran team, we found a way to keep it fun, keep it light. And I think anytime you do anything, when you're having a good time doing it, you're having fun, you go out and play your best. And we did that.
Well, you have a good attitude about Belichick and the Patriots. But in 2009, was that the case? And if not, how long did it take you to move on from those feelings in 2009?
Right. I'll say this, obviously being traded right before the season, it was a shock at the moment, but we go back to it's a business as well. And it happened maybe 4 or 5 days before the season, I got traded to Oakland. And when I was on the phone with Al Davis and he was telling me, he was like, hey, Richard, we got the highest paid punter in the league. We got the highest paid cornerback in the league, and we've got a young team. We traded for you so you can come in and help, change the culture and what we're trying to do. So I'll say this, dealing with my family, my kids were young and in school and that sort of thing. So took me about a week just to get the family settled. And I told Al Davis, the late, great Al Davis, I was going to come out there and give him everything that I had. So, he held up his end of the bargain and I tried to fulfill my end as well.
All right, Patriots Hall of Fame, great honor, congratulations. Pro Football Hall of Fame, you've been a finalist twice. Are you confident that, and I certainly feel you deserve it, but are you confident you'll make it into Canton?
Well, I'll say this. I think it's been a process. And, it's everybody who's come up into the finalists and semifinalists, all of the guys are very deserving. And I just think personally, every year I've gotten closer. Like I made the final 15 the year before. And then this year I was told I was in the room. And, obviously they only select 5, but I got down to the final 10. Like I say this, my work is done. I leave it up to the voters. I I definitely think I'm worthy. But at the end of the day, in due time. I had to wait on my red jacket, so I don't mind waiting on the gold jacket as well.
Listen, you had 57.5 sacks during your career, but you played a different style of defensive end and defensive tackle. So much of defensive linemen seem to be evaluated by sacks rather than were they a complete player. Does it bother you that they've reduced it to sacks?
Well, I'll say this. I've always been a guy that thought about it's a difference between stats and impact, right? You don't even have to, just in terms of a defensive player, you don't really have to have a lot of tackles or sacks in the game to really free up linebackers to make plays, have the offense run away from you, demand double teams and, just things like that. That's all a part of it as well. But you just want to go out and be, as a defensive lineman, you want to be physical. You want to be nasty. Your guy beside you right there, he know a lot about that. I always admire his career as well. So was always an animal out there. I see it. I can dig it.
My dog. Respect, brother.
Richard, thank you so much. We'll have you back on hopefully really soon when you're made the Hall of Fame, and we'll congratulate you on that. Richard Seymour, Patriots great, NFL great. We're going to stick with the Patriots topic and join Greg Bedard from his career from Boston Sports Journal. Greg will tell us why he thinks Cam Newton is still a possibility in New England. Speak for yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. More after this. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. All right, let's roll out to the Boston area and be joined by the founder of the Boston Sports Journal, Greg Bedard, who wrote a piece recently that don't rule out the Patriots signing Cam Newton, the free agent quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, who's still jobless at this moment. And so we thought we'd have Greg on to hear an explanation on why he still thinks there's a chance Cam Newton signs with the Patriots. Greg, please explain.
Well, I mean, number one, I don't think it's probable, but I do think it's possible. But there are a lot of things that need to happen. Number one, the Patriots have to create cap space. They have none right now. They can do that by extending Stephon Gilmore, Joe Thuney, trading Joe Thuney. Number two, when is the NFL going to get back to work? How much time are they going to have with Cam Newton on a practice field to get him into the Patriots offense? Because he's not just plug and play right away. Number three, he needs a thorough medical exam. I mean, with the shoulder and foot injuries, the team needs to be sure of that. And the last thing, the most important thing is there needs to be a conversation at some point between Newton and probably Bill Belichick. They need to ascertain where he is. You know, is Mr. Superman ready to compete for a starting job with a player in Jarrett Stidham who's thrown 4 NFL passes? Is he going to acquiesce to the Patriots way where, you know, the same methodology that drove Tom Brady to Tampa Bay, where Cam Newton would be a grunt, he would have no status over anyone. You know, so there are people around the league who question whether he would buy into something like that. But if all those answers align, then yeah, it's possible, certainly.
I wouldn't minimize the belief that they have in Jarrett Stidham. Looking at this situation, they didn't draft at the quarterback position because of that hope in Stidham. They didn't go and get a free agent quarterback starter because of the hope they have in Jarrett Stidham. So this is a situation, when you look at it, they're going to go and ride with him. They have to see who he is. And the only way you're going to see who he is in the regular season during real live football games. And that's going to be too late for Cam Newton to come aboard in the September, October and really buy into the system and to this culture. So I think their severance package, frankly, if all else fails and Stidham flames out, they're in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. I think that's just their game plan this year.
I want to say that I woke up this morning thinking no shot, read Greg's piece, thinking Greg is as connected as anybody with the Patriots. And just look at their history, the DNA of, hey, Randy Moss, after you've been humbled and humiliated, we know there's talent there. Will you buy into our system? We brought you out here. They took a chance on Chad Johnson. He didn't buy in. They dusted him or didn't use him much and then eventually dusted him. I could see the Patriots and Bill Belichick saying, look, if we can get Cam Newton in the right mindset, completely humbled, willing to be a grunt, because this would be good for Cam Newton, even if he just went there on a one-year deal, one-year experiment. If he survived Bill Belichick and came out with Bill Belichick having a high opinion of him, I think his value, not just in New England, but across the league, elevates. Greg, I'll give you the final thought.
Yeah, I mean, my final thought, let me go to what Marcellus said, and I understand his point there about Jarrett Stidham. But what people need to understand is that, yes, Jarrett Stidham might be their starting quarterback right now with a competition with Brian Hoyer, but don't mistake that for belief that he is now a franchise quarterback. And the number one reason is, the Patriots don't give anything to anybody. They don't anoint someone a franchise quarterback before they earn it on the field. Tom Brady barely beat out Damon Heward to be the backup in 2001. And so if they didn't give Tom Brady anything and he went on to become the greatest quarterback ever, they haven't anointed Jarrett Stidham. It's been a whole bunch of issues, starting with the pandemic, the cap space. They didn't like the quarterbacks in this draft, and the quarterbacks they did like, they didn't have enough ammunition to get them. This is just where they are. They want to see where he is. He'll sink or swim. And 2 years or next year, the Patriots have a load of cap space and they can do whatever they want at the quarterback position. So it's not about Jarrett Stidham. It's just about where they are.
Thank you, Greg. We got to keep it rolling.
Thank you,
Uncle
brother.
Jimmy's just around the corner. Uncle Jimmy's got some thoughts on Major League Baseball.
Wow.
Oh, what shirt is he wearing?
Wow.
Speak for yourself from Hyundai. More after this. All right, welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley, Uncle Jimmy. Uncle Jimmy, you got Big Dummy of the Day or a comment on baseball?
Oh, hell yeah. Big dummy of the day go to the person that wore a shirt that's so bright ass red, it made him look gray on national TV. How in the hell you gonna buy a shirt so red that a gangbanger won't even wear it? That shirt is so red you can't even get the hell in that shirt, man. What the hell wrong with you?